about the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA, that was just discussed. You know, the fights that we fight for, they matter. In 2012, because of the persistence of many of you in this room, 800,000 young men and women were protected from deportation because of you, because of your work. And because of DACA, dreamers who are as American as you and me were promised a chance. They were promised a chance to work, the chance to live without being fear of being ripped away from family and friends and the home that most of them have known, the chance to build a future. And now, President Trump will make a decision on DACA. Dreamers' future hangs in the balance. This Tuesday, August 15th, people are mobilizing to protect dreamers. So let's not sit back. Let's stand together and say, President Trump, let dreamers stay. They are our friends, our family, and our future. Give dreamers the chance to build their dreams. That's what we want to do. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, these fights matter. These fights matter. And that's why it's good to be back at Netroots Nation. I love it. Thank you, Netroots Nation. And thank you, Mary, and thank you, Eric, and thank you, Arshad, and thank the entire Netroots Nation's team for bringing us together again. You know, it is a great treat to be here in Atlanta, the hometown of a man who has taught us the importance of necessary trouble. My friend and my hero, John Lewis. What a man. I look out in this room and I see 3,000 progressives, people of every race, gender, religion, and color, all committed to building a better future. I look out here and I see Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Yeah, Trump's worst nightmare, but also a big threat to everyone who kind of likes things the way they work right now. Now, a few weeks ago, I read an op-ed in the New York Times from a so-called Democratic strategist, and the title was Back to the Center Democrats. It sounds like some other people read it too. You know, it was all about how we have to stop caring about, quote, identity politics, and how we have to stop waging, quote, class warfare. You know, according to this author, the path forward is to go back to locking up nonviolent drug offenders and ripping more holes in our economic safety net. I even got a shout out. Apparently, I am the face of the problem. So is Bernie. But let's be really clear here. The real power, the real threat is not me. It's you, all of you. Yeah, it's your energy, your passion, and your commitment to our values that threaten the bland business-as-usual establishment. Now, we've been warned off before. You know, we've been told, give up, keep your heads down, be realistic, act like a grown-up, keep doing the same old, same old. But here's what's interesting. After this piece was published, instead of a lot of ferocious back and forth and piling on, this time, no one cared. Big yawn. Why? Because the Democratic Party isn't going back to the days of welfare reform and the crime bill. It is not going to happen. Are we clear on that? Yeah. We are not going back to the days of being lukewarm on choice. No, we're not. We're not going back to the days when universal health care was something Democrats talked about on the campaign trail, but were too chicken to fight for after they got elected. And we are definitely not going back to the days when a Democrat who wanted to run for a seat in Washington first had to grovel on Wall Street. Nope, we're not going back. Democrats are headed forward. We are looking ahead, and we will not, we shall not, we must not allow anyone to turn back the clock. Now, a lot of you have been coming here since the very first yearly coast back in 2006. I know that feels like a long time ago, right? And way back in 2006, and still when I first came in 2010, a big part of what we were trying to do was crash the gate and get the Democratic Party to listen to us. We wanted a party led by people who weren't afraid to call themselves progressives. We wanted a party that would defend progressive values. We wanted a chance to fight for progressive solutions to our nation's challenges. We wanted a movement. And now, look around. We got the progressive movement. We got it. We got it, and we gather here every year to organize, to energize, and to sing karaoke. You bet. And now, we are not the gate crashers of today's Democratic Party. We are not a wing of today's Democratic Party. We are the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. But boy, we have inherited a hell of a challenge, haven't we? We are gathering here in Atlanta in a moment of crisis for our country. And I'm not just talking about Donald Trump and his Twitter account. More and more families today are hanging on by their fingernails in a country with an economy and a government that works for those at the very top. This crisis didn't start when Donald Trump walked into the Oval Office, and it won't just magically disappear when he walks out of it. It's true. Now, I've been shouting about this crisis from every rooftop I could find for years, talking about how our middle class is squeezed to the breaking point, how chances to move up in this economy are disappearing, and warning that if we weren't careful, the very promise of this nation, the commitment to expand opportunities, would be lost. That's the fight that got me into politics. That's the fight that brought me to my very first Netroots all those years ago. So I want to ask a question, by applause, if you can get two hands together there. By applause, who got into this fight because they were passionate about economic justice? There we go. Who came to the fight? Who came to the fight for reproductive rights? How about clean air and clean water? Yeah. How about immigration? Yeah. Civil rights, human rights, anti-war, campaign finance reform, clean air and clean water, net neutrality. I just said it, net neutrality. All right, well, do we have any other bankruptcy nerds in the house? Okay, one or two. Okay, my guys. You know, but this is one of the things that I love about coming to Netroots. We all came to this fight from different experiences, and we get fired up about different issues. But if we're going to be the people who lead the Democratic Party back from the wilderness and lead our country out of this dark time, then we can't waste energy arguing about whose issue matters more and who in our alliance should be voted off the island. We need to see each other's fights as our own, and I believe we can. You know, following the 2016 election, I heard a lot of people say that Democrats need to decide whether we're the party of the white working class or the party of Black Lives Matter. Well, I say we can care about a dad who's worried that his kid will have to move away from their factory town to find decent work, and we can care about a mom who's worried that her kid will get shot during a traffic stop. Yeah. The way I see it, those two parents have something deep down in common. The system is rigged against both of them and against their kids. Over the last generation, the most powerful people in this country have gotten way more powerful. Corporate profits and CEO pay are near record highs, but workers' wages, they haven't budged. And one after another, workers' rights are getting ripped away. Unions are under attack. Millions of people are struggling to piece together 2, 3, 4 jobs just to pay the rent. The balance of power is shifting in other parts of our economy too. You know, in industry after industry, airlines, banking, healthcare, agriculture, tech, a handful of corporate giants control more and more and more. The big guys are locking out smaller, newer competitors. They're crushing innovation. Even if you don't see the gears turning, this massive consolidation means prices go up and quality goes down for everything from air travel to broadband service. And rural America is left behind, dismissed by corporate giants as flyover country. This concentration of power strikes at the heart of our democracy. Over country. This concentration of power strikes at the heart of our democracy. Our government is supposed to be the one place where everybody gets the same fair shot, no matter how powerful or how powerless they might be. But thanks to the revolving door between Capitol Hill, K Street, and Wall Street, powerful people have more and more and more influence in Congress. Thanks to Citizens United, corporate money slithers through Washington like a snake. Washington works great for the rich and the powerful, but for everyone else, not so much. Yes, the system is rigged. And if you don't feel like anyone in politics is doing anything to unrig it, well, that's how a lot of folks who should have been with us last November wound up voting for Donald Trump. For many Americans, it isn't news that the balance of power in our country has seriously tilted away from them. LGBTQ Americans, immigrants, Muslims, women, poor people. Now, I have not personally experienced the fear, the oppression, the pain that many of my fellow Americans endure every day, but I do know this. For a lot of our fellow citizens, the system is rigged now, and it has been rigged for a long, long time. And look, don't just take my word for it. Look around. When women aren't invited to the debate over our own health care and health insurance must cover Viagra but not birth control, when we're almost 2 decades into the 21st century and we still don't have equal pay for equal work? When a man running for president of the United States can get caught on tape bragging about sexual assault and the Republican Party leaders turn a blind eye, yeah, the system is rigged. But keep going. When the black-white wealth gap triples over the last 3 decades, when racist voter ID laws and voter suppression tactics sprout like weeds all over this country, when a man too racist to become a judge in the 1980s is now the head of the Department of Justice, when communities like Flint are living with poisoned water and polluted air, when there is still no justice for Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Philandro Castile, and so many more. Yeah, the system is rigged. And keep on going. When you can still be fired from your job because of who you love. When you can't use a public restroom or serve in the military because of your gender identity. When you're afraid to report a rape because ICE could split up your family. When you're treated like a suspect every minute of your life. Yeah, the system is rigged. And if you don't feel like anyone in politics is doing anything to unrig it, or you feel like it's just too broken to unrig at all, well, that's what a lot of folks felt last November. A lot of folks who should have been with us on Election Day, but who just stayed home. So spare me the argument about whether we ought to be trying to bring back folks who voted for Donald Trump or trying to turn out folks who just didn't vote. Because we can't do either of those things until we show that things can change and that we will fight to change them. It is easy to make the case that Donald Trump and the Republicans aren't the answer to any of these problems. Heck, they aren't even trying. Just look at Republican priorities. Cut health care coverage for 25 million Americans and drive up insurance costs for millions more. Cut taxes for billionaires and giant corporations. Roll back Wall Street regulations, gut the Consumer Financial Bureau, and let the big banks wreck our economy again. Turn polluters loose to let them spew and dump and destroy whenever and whatever they want. Zero out the programs that help people keep a roof over their head. Double down against Planned Parenthood, against an undocumented immigrant's right to due process, against a Black American's right to vote in an election. And this week, play a reckless game of chicken with a dangerous foreign power and threaten nuclear war. The Republican agenda. The Republican agenda will make the powerful more powerful and leave everyone else further behind. The Republican leadership is willing to threaten our health, our economy, and our basic safety. Now, all of that is true, and we should say so clearly and loudly. But that's not the end of our job. We have to show people that when we get the chance to lead, things will start getting better. And that starts with showing some backbone. Not just backbone when we stand up to Donald Trump, but backbone when we put forward our own agenda. Yeah. For so many Americans, every day is a battle against powerful interests. And it's time for us to pick sides and get in the fight. So let's talk about picking sides. You ready to talk about picking sides? It is time for us to say Democrats are on the side of working people. Yeah. On the side of moms and dads who dream of a better life for their kids. On the side of people in every part of this country and people of every race, gender, and religion who just want a level playing field and a chance to build a future. That's what they want. And we know how to show them that their fight is our fight. Let's start with jobs. It is time to rethink the basic social contract on labor. We're going to fight for fully portable benefits for everyone. And we're going to fight to make sure that all work, full-time, part-time, gig, carries basic pro rata benefits. Yeah. We're going to fight to make it easier for workers to come together to form a union so they can take power into their own hands. Yeah. And we're going to turn the minimum wage into a living wage. Fight for 15. Yes. It's time for us to say that Democrats are on the side of hardworking families who are just getting pounded every single day. We're going to fight for universal pre-K and to make it easier for every family to get child care. We're going to fight like hell to stop Republicans from jacking up the cost of health insurance and taking away health care coverage from millions of people. Trump Care will not get one Democratic vote. Not now, not ever. But it's not enough just to defend the Affordable Care Act. We're going to improve it, starting with bringing down the cost of prescription drugs and leading the fight for Medicare for all. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to make it possible for young people to go to college or get a technical degree debt-free. That's where we are. We're going to fight for affordable housing and good schools all across our country, from the biggest cities to the smallest towns to the most remote rural homesteads. And we will fight our hearts out to defend and expand Social Security and Medicare. Yes, we will. It's time for us to say that Democrats are on the side of consumers. So we're going to fight to break up the monopolies that are killing competition. Yes. We're going to put a cop on the beat so no one can steal your purse on Main Street or your pension on Wall Street. And whether you're shopping for broadband or a student loan, an airline ticket or health insurance, we're going to go to bat for you to make damn sure you don't get cheated. Yeah. There's another thing we need to say, but it's a little controversial, so I hope everybody's like either sitting down or holding on to their neighbors. But we got to say this out loud and in public. Democrats are on the side of science. You think? We got it. Yeah. Yep. We're done arguing about whether climate change is real. And we're going to fight with everything we have. We're done arguing about whether or not trickle-down economics works. And we're going to fight to build an economy so it works for working families. And we're done arguing about gun safety, and we're going to fight for some common sense reforms that the overwhelming majority of Americans support. It's time for us to say, Democrats are on the side of fairness and equality. So we're going to fight for equal pay for equal work. Yeah. We're going to fight to keep Planned Parenthood open. And we're going to make sure that women have access to safe, legal abortions. And we're going to fight to put more women in positions of power, from committee rooms to boardrooms to that really nice oval-shaped office at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to reform our criminal justice system so that getting caught with a baggie of pot does not mean that your life is ruined, and getting pulled over by the cops does not mean your life is at risk. It's time to say that Democrats are on the side of American values. So we're going to fight for comprehensive immigration reform. Yeah. We're going to say to every dreamer in this country, you are an American. This country is your home, and we have your back. That's what we're going to say. We're going to fight to wipe the stain of Donald Trump's Muslim ban off the books once and for all. And by the way, Mr. President, we're never, ever going to build your stupid wall. And we're also going to fight for our democracy. That means we will fight to reverse Citizens United so big corporations can't buy our elections. And we'll fight to stop the voter ID laws so Republicans can't steal our elections. Yeah. And you know something? It's about time for us to be upfront about whose side we are not on. We are not on the side of big Wall Street banks that break the law and thinks everyone else needs to be held accountable. When big bank CEOs break the law, they ought to go to jail just like anyone else. We are not on the side of giant corporations that want to twist government rules for themselves. We are going to slam shut the revolving door and say enough is enough with corporate money that is drowning our democracy. And let's be really clear on this one, just in case anybody doubted it. We are not on the side of the bigots and misogynists, and unlike the so-called Republican leadership in Washington, we're not afraid to say it to their faces. And we are not on the side of foreign governments that hack our elections or politicians whose fragile egos put our national security at risk. And let's be clear here, folks, we don't have to tiptoe anymore. We don't have to hedge our bets. We don't have to ask permission from the pundits or the corporate CEOs, and we sure don't have to ask permission from Mitch McConnell. Actually, that's probably a pretty good thing because he would probably tell me to sit down and shut up. Nevertheless, I would persist. Sit. No, I want to. No. Let me do this. Because I want to make a really important point. We don't have to fear the wrath of the powerful, because when we are bold enough to stand up for our values, when we are bold enough to stand up for our fellow Americans, then that is when we are powerful. That's why we're here. That's why. So, isn't that the spirit that brought all of us to this movement? Isn't that the reason that we are proud to call ourselves progressives? Isn't that the Democratic Party that we want to call our own? This fight is our fight. This fight is the fight Americans have been waiting for someone to take on. This fight is the fight Americans are ready to rally behind. This fight is the fight Americans are counting on us to win. This fight is my fight. This fight is your fight. So let's go win this fight. It is so good.